to Making It. Hope you're excited for today's show. I am very excited to sit down with this gentleman. Rob, welcome to the Making It podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
No problem at all, mate. Really excited to go through your background, find out a little bit about yourself and obviously what you're up to nowadays, and the future as well for your companies. And there's a couple we're going to mention and discuss throughout. But I guess to start with, mate, take us back. 2008, you graduated University of Manchester, geography degree. What happened from there? Talk us through.
Yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. So I did, as you alluded to, I studied geography, but I didn't really study it. I fluked through it. I spent most of my time learning to code computer games on a MacBook. Oh, not a MacBook, a Mac Mini it was then. That's what I blew my student loan on. So yeah, it came out of that with a rudimentary understanding. I wanted to make games, so I used the game engine that was popular back then. And then got very lucky. A friend of the family referred me into a digital agency where I spent a good, I think it was 2 years, 2 or 3 years, great times, fantastic job, great people, learned a lot. Was hired in a more of a development role there, as you might expect, but got moved reasonably quickly into account management. So yeah. I was very lucky. I got to work with some quite large brands at the age of 22, 23.
Amazing.
And yeah, learned about agency life. And I had a brief escape from that. I moved on to a software development company based in Stockport. I had a year or two with them, and then decided to strike out on my own, I suppose. I'd been working, moonlighting, as it were, as a developer for some of that time, and thought, yeah, let's use that as a runway to start my own agency. And so I did that, as you said, about 8 years ago now, or 9 years ago.
And what was the kind of the key trigger? What really went, right, this is it, I can do this and I want to do this? We'll start with I want to do this and then go to I can do this.
I think like a lot of people who start businesses, you're working with and alongside other business owners and entrepreneurs, and some of that rubs off. And I think, in my case, I thought, you know what, I want to have a go at building something rather than working within something. It's not that I see that as better in any way. It's just a challenge that I fancied. And the real trigger, that was the desire, and the real trigger was an offer from the client that I was moonlighting for to give me a 6-month runway. So effectively, I had a conversation with them, and they said, "Look, we'll underwrite, I guess, your first 6 months." Essentially giving me that time to get established and get going. So I jumped on that in February, I guess, 2011.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned then part of the stuff what rubbed off on you was working with these people who are obviously business owners and entrepreneurs themselves. Did you ever lean back on them and kind of rely on any kind of experience and advice they gave you?
Yeah, I did. I did a little bit. I left on good terms from both jobs. I'm not someone who burns bridges. And indeed, with both, I only worked for 2 companies, the agency and the software company. We've gone on to work with them since then and maintain good relationships with them. I think that one of the benefits I've had is that network, and having good relationships with not just the entrepreneurs in those organizations, but other people within them who've then moved on, moved up, moved to other organizations, and the great majority of clients we work with at the moment at Indiespring have come through those relationships. So yeah, I think you very much lean on the pillars of the past in that respect.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously Indiespring there, the company you founded and started. What, I guess, talk us through the formative years there. So the first few years, what were the challenges? How did you what was the key things you remember? I know it's a little while ago now, but what were the key things you kind of remember from them formative years?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like we're forming, Will. So I still pretty much feel like we're in our formative years. I mean, the big one's cash, isn't it? When you start out, it's all you're focused on. And I think that's okay. It's actually positive. It gives you one thing to worry about, and you don't need to worry about too much else. And I think those early years, you're doing the doing, you're doing the managing, you're hiring others, and there's definite phases, I think, to business. And one of the first phases or transitions from one phase to another for me was when you hire someone else, sure, but you're double checking work, you're providing that quality assurance, I guess. You're still responsible for it, but you give someone, a client, a new one or an old one, they're both equally as hard, I find, and you give it to someone else to run with. And you're no longer overseeing. And I think, I remember that being a distinct marker, I guess, is that day that you're like, okay, you run with that, and I won't oversee it anymore.
How did that go? Did you
yeah, good. No, positive. I mean, it's like you expect, though, isn't it? When someone's shadowing you, they don't make mistakes, sure, but you're not getting any benefit. It's a duplication of hours and so on. At some point, you have to make that leap. And if you've got good relationships with clients, if you've, for me, as long as you're honest, with your clients and with your staff, you can't get into too much trouble, emotionally, behaviorally. It's when you start lying and covering things up that things can go really wrong. So yeah, of course there were hiccups, mistakes, but no, it's gone on, and that's the model we've stuck with, really.
Amazing.
Is to encourage people to jump in deep and early, make mistakes, be honest about them. It was good. Overall, the transition's gone well.
Yeah, you speak a lot about relationships there as well, and like the importance of them. Is that something you've not only built with obviously clients internally, with the teams and so on, but is that something you kind of like breathe through the company? You say, listen, this is how you do, and you kind of give that focus to your employees to say, go build relationships with clients, go, make, like you say, make your mistakes, but really focus on building that relationship so you can talk about that and kind of expand on it when needed with clients and rely on that to get you more business as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is very important, but I wouldn't say it, focusing on relationships is a strategy that we teach. It's just how we do things, and we wouldn't hire people that didn't. I'm a great believer that a business isn't a business, it's just a group of people under a brand name. And so all we're really forming is personal relationships with other individuals that happen to work for a different brand than the one we work for. But fundamentally, it's a personal relationship. And so it's less of a strategy and a deliberate culture and approach that we take, and more of just how we are, I suppose. And business in our world, in the agency world, isn't transactional. People aren't coming, arriving, buying 20 of something and leaving. It by necessity is a relationship. And you're helping someone, you're solving a problem for them. And I think you can't do that effectively and consistently and over a long term without building a personal relationship with individuals within that team. And so, yeah, it's very important, centrally important, actually.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that ethos as well. And I guess, so you hired a few people. How fast did you expand then over, say, the first 2, 3, 4 years? How fast was that expansion?
Pretty quickly. We within the first year, we'd gone from 1 to 3. Then we got our first office, and I think that took us to about 10-ish. And that was by, I should have this printed out and be ready. That was by about year 2 or 3. We grew reasonably quickly in the early days. We've always grown organically. We've never taken investment or done a particularly great job of advertising ourselves. But we've grown on average about 25% year on year until the recent years when we've sped up a bit. So yeah, I think we went 1, 3, sort of 5, 10 over those first few years.
And what kind of number did you think was the most difficult for you as a controller, as a manager? What kind of number did you get to and go, God, this is expanding now? How do I give off some of these responsibilities to people to manage other people? Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? So I think your first phase is that handing responsibility to someone, and you're still calling the shots, you still bring the client on, you're just giving responsibility for delivery to someone. I think there's another phase there as you get to 10-ish people, you're now taking one step further back. There may now be a manager between you and the doer, maybe that a project manager or a team lead or something like that. And I think there's a definite transition at around 10 or 12 people for me. You can no longer even be watching oversight on everything. You have to let it go completely at that point, not just the execution, but the relationship, everything around it. And I think that's challenging, and getting yourself. I was very lucky. I had a fantastic, and still have a fantastic business mentor who from the beginning worked with me on this, is decentralizing it from you. I've spoken to a lot of business owners who have 20, 25, 30 employees who still haven't managed to get themselves out of the day-to-day, and it's a hard job and challenge to do. But I remember it was things like server passwords. I'd set up all the servers. It was knowing the login for the supplier that gives us the coffee, or it's the silly things like that you can't get away from the business. And at about 10 or 12 people, you can't trust everyone. It can't just be on, you've got to put in place all these systems to get yourself out of the business, the day-to-day of the business, and I think that was a big one. And then the same again at 20 people, I think maybe 25, which is where we are now. You're having to teach the next level to try and do that a bit, right? You've got business leaders who are still a little too stuck in the day-to-day execution and trying to coach them around, okay, you need to push, let that go, let your teams deal with what they're great at, so you can focus on that longer term stuff. So I think it's almost like 5, 10 and 20 are the big steps roughly in our business.
Yeah, and you mentioned the business mentor. Then would you recommend that to someone starting out, then, to have someone to lean on and speak with? Hugely.
And I think people can immediately understand the benefit of someone who's been in your industry and done what you've done before. But this wasn't that. This was a support through an organization called the Alternative Board. They effectively bring together small business leaders who aren't big enough to have their own board, and bring them together in non-competing areas. So we wouldn't be placed with another agency, with a facilitator. Once a month you get together and you each bring a business issue. And my immediate thought entering that process was, how much value am I going to get from a financial planner, a toilet roll manufacturer? There was all sorts of different businesses, but the business problems that you bring aren't in our case, software development, mobile app development problems, because you can kind of get around them. It's the problems that you don't have an answer to, staffing, when to hire, whether you should take on investment, whether you should take on finance, whether how you should go about laying off someone potentially. And business owners of smaller organizations don't, at least in my experience, have an outlet for that, or a sounding board. So I think we could have done with someone with agency experience earlier, but we benefited massively from having access to not just the facilitator within TAB, but also the other business owners around the table. It was huge. I would recommend it. And there are others.
Yeah, you're still part of that, or is it still?
Yeah.
Is it, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not being paid to say any of this. But I think the fact that I signed up as we moved into that office, so about year 2 or 3. Yeah. So I've been there 7 or 8 years working with Paul, who's my facilitator, and I attribute a lot of the bullets dodged. I think things like not being stuck in the business. I think things like having a good eye on the finances, a decent company culture. We haven't gone through problems of staff turnover, of running out of cash, of I guess cultural issues, and I attribute a lot of that to the support that we've had from TAB.
Yeah, so I'll make sure we get the link of that, guys, and make sure we put it on the.
Yeah, so it's Paul Winterbottom on LinkedIn. He's the facilitator for West Manchester. There are others around the country. I don't know what the geography of this discussion is, but yeah, absolutely. But there are others too, and that's one that suited me. But there are other peer-to-peer networks that might suit people more.
Yeah. So obviously, you've like you said earlier, you've continued to grow. You're doing fantastic at the moment. You're constantly out there, and I guess talk to us about Indiespring then, and what your guys' focus is. I know obviously you do mobile app development. What kind of put you down that route in terms of mobile area instead of web development is obviously huge, but you particularly focus on mobile.
So we grew up for the first 5 years. We'd do anything we could, is the honest answer. And you're taking on project exactly, yeah. And you're taking on projects of a size that you can be a generalist and still deliver value across lots of different platforms. As you get bigger, as we get bigger, as we got bigger, you realize that you want larger projects. You want to work your way up the value chain, I suppose. You want to add value beyond just execution. And for that, you need a specialism. And we decided to move into mobile application development. It was an area that we found exciting. It was an area that we had experience in. That moonlighting client I mentioned that I'd been working with at that point for 5 or 6 years was around mobile app development. So it felt like a natural step. Yeah. And then further than that, we've, over the last few years, worked out that most of the great work that we do is with in-house technology teams. So I mentioned that software developer. There are others where, our clients that we work best with have an internal team. They build an internal product, and they're being asked to build mobile apps around that core product. Yeah. They might not have the skills in-house. It's a very different skill set, not just in terms of languages, but in terms of approach. Mobile ecosystems, very dynamic, changes very regularly, new handsets, new updates, new rules, new technologies. Yeah. And our clients typically don't struggle to manage that in-house. And so they're choosing to work with a partner like us to build the apps around their core products. So that's what we're doing now. And
how important are mobile apps, would you say, in today's society as well? I think we all have a phone and we all use them. So obviously very important, but why do you think they're so important for software companies now?
I think, I think we had the app explosion of about 5 years ago, wherein we worked out that apps aren't the appropriate answer to every problem, and that the mobile web clearly is the right solution for probably the majority of interactions a user may have with a brand. That said, I'm a true believer that the best digital experiences on mobile happen within applications, and for times when a quick interaction, a simple exchange of information, when we need more than that mobile apps are the appropriate mechanism to do so and channel. And I think we're seeing that as apps evolve, as mobile usage evolves. People using their mobile phone is only going up. I think just the politics around the operating system providers, Android and Google, mean that the higher value apps, those where true value is exchange, are going to sit within those walled gardens and are going to require native apps. And I think that's good. It's good for us, clearly, because we're in the app game. But I also think taking the politics out of it, the user experience can be significantly better within an application and take advantage of the features of the phones that we've got nowadays. And I very much see the future of digital products having, in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, having an app component. And I think
for people to go to, they go on the phone, they go on their app. There you go. You've got your contact with what you wanted. You don't have to search it on the web. It's there in front of you straight away, and you can have it personalized to the apps you want. So, it does make perfect sense. I mean, if I'm a startup now, because I know you do a lot of work with obviously startups at Indiespring, and that's something you kind of do help with and focus on. If I'm a startup now and I have a software company, how would I go about even thinking about getting an app and going from there, to get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, I think, and I've written an article on this recently, the startup app game is a challenging place to be, and it's fundamentally about you need a route to market. Execution's one thing. We can build a great app, we can make it a great experience, but unless you've established a route to market, the days of an idea and execution being enough have probably passed in the vast majority of cases, and I certainly wouldn't want to bet my life savings on any individual being the exception. So I think establishing what is it, having that unique idea isn't enough. How are you going to get it out, get it in front of the audience? And you need a channel partner, another organization that has access to the market that you could work with. You need a significant budget if you're going to go the marketing route, if you look at people like Just Eat and so on, and the amount of money that they have to spend to capture market. Or you need to be very, very niche in your offering and find a way that actually you only need to attract tens, hundreds, maybe low thousands of users for this app to work for you commercially, if that's your objective.
Yeah.
And I think, I've written an article on this recently. I think they're the three avenues that we try and look for with startups, because with the best idea in the world, with the best execution, you will hit the app store along with thousands of other apps every day. Unless you have that route, you're going to struggle to make an impact, I think.
And that's to kind of work with someone like yourselves. For that as well. Exactly.
So as you mentioned, we work with startups. It's not our core work. It's a passion project for us a lot of time. It allows us to stretch our creative muscles, perhaps a little more than the longer technology projects. It allows us we often use it, frankly, to help train our juniors and apprentices, to give them client exposure in an environment that's a little safer than live, corporate big builds. But we have a process that we work through with startups, and it's not just looking at market viability, it's also technology choices, project delivery choices, design choices. There's a lot to go at there that I think we can help with, sure. But I still think the fundamental thing that someone needs to consider if they're looking at starting a startup within the app space is, how are you going to get the app out there?
Yeah, and that's obviously startups. I mean, you said there it's not your main focus. I mean, you look on your website and there's some fantastic reviews on there from large companies, corporations, saying how you are a partner to them. And I think that's something I just want to touch on. Like, you're not just someone who provides a service. You like you said, you build a relationship. You partner with the company you're working with. So moving away from startups and onto the people, the companies you partner with, how does that differ? What's the operation there? Like, how does that change from startups?
So I think when we're looking at partnering with larger organizations, we're invested in the app's success, sometimes financially, but we won't be judged. We're not judged solely on a strong build, a decent delivery, and a project that's delivered on budget, on time. That's the minimum expectation of an agency. And there are lots of suppliers, offshore suppliers, nearshore suppliers, that can fulfill that brief very accurately and probably at a much lower cost.
It's really refreshing to hear you say that as well. Like, that's the minimum expectations.
Let's be honest. There are plenty of fantastic offshoring and nearshoring companies that can take a specification and deliver a fantastic product to budget, to time. But we need to be doing that at an absolute minimum. But we also need to be invested at a far greater level in the success of that product. So we tend to work beyond just taking a specification and delivering a product. We want to be inputting, helping, assisting. We're working with clients who recognize that they don't have that specification yet. They don't know the product that's required. They may not know the customers that are going to be using the product that's required. So it's about going through that journey. It's about designing the product. It's about delivering, executing, but then that ongoing piece of being humble, being honest and open with clients. Say, we're not going to get this right day one. The app will not launch in 100% perfect condition. It's going to require ongoing investment, time, analysis. So most of the projects that we do with larger clients have an element of ongoing work that is more than just a security retainer, a support retainer, that kind of thing. It's actively or proactively improving, measuring, monitoring the app. All of those things in reverse. So measuring, monitoring, improving the application and ensuring that it is hitting the objectives that it needs to do. And I think
amazing
that helps. We don't need, because we have those relationships, we don't need to bring on many clients each year. Our cash flow isn't like this, luckily, in a normal year, because we're not really a design and build agency. We may bring on 2 clients a year, maybe 3 at most. Most of our work is working with the clients that we have and ensuring that their digital products are working for them.
Yeah, and I think you go back again, and we've said it enough times, but relationships, that is what you're saying. It's not about just putting something out there, right, we're done with you. you build them relationships and you maintain them, and you build them apps and you maintain them and look after them and make sure they succeed. So yeah, I think that's how you've grown so quickly and became the power you are in the mobile app industry and you know, and what you do. What's the future though for Indiespring now? Like where do you see yourself going? And that's probably something you've not thought about. You kind of taking it.
No, it's something we talk about a lot. Where we think we're going and where we end up going often don't seem to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we spent the first 8 years in a bit of a tortoise shell. We relied on my network. We haven't cracked the how to get out there and tell people about what we're doing and our approach and what makes us different. So the next few years of Indiespring, I hope, are starting to get out there, to educate others, to help others, to broaden our horizons and our networks and relationships, to learn more from others, to help teach others, and hopefully to expose ourselves to a wider array of opportunities and work with, you know, exciting companies and exciting brands that are attracted to working with us, that we haven't stumbled upon accidentally, that they found us and they're keen to work with us because they recognize the experience that we bring. I think that's our big objective. That's the one thing we've not solved yet.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we will obviously come back to Indiespring, but the reason I asked about the future there, because I want to go on to another project you've got.
Sorry, I ruined your lovely segue there, Will. Let me.
Well, you know, I tried.
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water.
But yeah, Tybolt. Talk to me about Tybolt. So founded in 2018.
Yeah, it's a true tech startup. So if you think about Indiespring, it's organic. It's never had investment. It's grown through networking, my network organically, in my view, a fair but not a tech accelerated pace, let's say. Tybolt is a product that we're invested in both as a business and personally myself, which is more of a pure tech startup play. So we're back to square one. We're bootstrapping. There's no budget there. We've designed a product that we think is revolutionary in its sector, and the sector isn't a particularly sexy one compared to some of the work that Indiespring does. It's in the public-private partnership space, so it's all around governance and oversight and assurance of transactions between the public and private sector. It's based in Australia. My business partner Dan is based over there, and he had this great idea, and we were sat at a bar when we were allowed. Well, we're not allowed to be in Australia for a start, but also allowed to be sat in a bar over a beer. And I think he identified a gap in the market. We had some capacity at the time, and we decided to embark on this adventure. And yeah, it's a startup in its purest form. It's taken a few years to hone that message, to build the product. We were recently shortlisted within the G20's Infra Challenge project. We got to the top 10, which we're very proud of. And we're on that journey. We're on that journey to build and grow a technology company that has a different, I guess, management style, a different growth trajectory, a different business model than the more, I guess, old-fashioned, traditional, safe, organic business that I've grown so far. So that's time.
I see your excitement in it as well. I can hear it, and I hope the users, people watching this, can see that as well. That you genuinely are very excited. So you still got that drive, and that's not gone anywhere. You still.
Yeah, I think I alluded to before. There's people who are, I guess, comfortable working for others and being part of a team and functioning there, and there are people who want to go out and build something new, and that's. I mean, this isn't my first attempt, Will. We've had loads of great ideas. Luckily, this time I've got an experienced business partner along with me, so he can help do the hard bit. I just have to build the technology. But yeah, we've tried lots of ideas, tourist apps for attractions, all sorts of different things. But no, this is the first serious one. And yeah, I think that drives a good thing. I think I like to have that moonshot in the pocket. I like to have that something that you're working on alongside the day-to-day that just might accelerate. And Tybolt certainly seems to be the one that's accelerating at the moment. So
Yeah. So what's the kind of big differences then you found between when you started Indiespring? That was 2 different times, like you said,
Yeah.
What's the main differences you found?
Well, I've got a business partner for one.
Yeah.
Indiespring was just me. So that's a massive difference. And it has pros and it has cons, obviously.
I'm going to say, we'll start with the pros, and then I'm going to be cheeky and ask a few cons.
Yeah, of course. So the pros are that you've got someone else, and that means someone to talk to about issues. So maybe the board wouldn't have been as necessary if I'd had other business partners. That's the alternative board, I mean. You've got someone with sector expertise. So in this particular example, I don't know anything about the public-private partnership world. That's nothing, I'm learning fast, but it's certainly not my area of expertise. And you're sharing the risk, right? Is the other aspect of that. So your investment's lower, it's less lonely, and you've got more experience in the team. They're the pros. The cons are you have to do a lot of convincing, negotiating, discussing. You both have different views on how things should be done, and you've got to be willing to compromise. And that hasn't been too challenging so far while it's just the two of us, but it could be in the future. I don't know, because I've never run a business with a partner.
Yeah. You're the CTO at Tybolt as well, so you're obviously the sorry, what was your partner?
Daniel Blakemore.
Dan, he obviously knows the sector very well. Does he have that input into the technology as well? Does he say, "Oh, well, we should be doing it this way," and you'd be like, "Well, come on, I've
got to be careful here because he'll be watching this." No. I think in that respect the lines are quite clearly drawn. I don't think Dan would mind me saying that he's quite happy to let me take the lead on the tech stuff. I mean, in some ways, it's a client relationship. It's what we do all day, every day. He's had the idea. He knows the sector. He knows what he needs. It's just in this case, rather than him paying for a project delivery, we're providing that service and more to grow that business together. So, no, I think from a tech perspective, there's not conflict. And from a sector expertise, it's things like marketing or new business, or how do we go to this conference or that it's the other stuff that where with Indiespring I just make the decision and go. Clearly, once you've got a partner, there's a discussion there, and even the discussion has pros and cons. You don't always get it right, do you?
Have you done that yet? Have you kind of gone, right, I'm going to this, and then realize you've got to go back and go, wait, Dan, are we all right?
No, we talk pretty often, and obviously he's in Australia, I'm in the UK, so if there is a conference to go to, we're probably not both attending it. There aren't any at the moment anyway, are there? But no, and we're still at the early stages. Will although we've been doing it for a while, we're still trialing, piloting. We've got the technology. We're in the process of taking that to market at the moment.
So you mentioned that there aren't any conferences at the moment. How's this period been then for Tybolt and Indiespring, I guess? Like what's the pandemic for you guys?
Well, Tybolt was successful. The Infra Challenge project ran across that, and I think we very much benefited from being a part of that process and having there was a lot of mentorship that came along with that was very useful. I think from Indiespring's perspective, we took a lot less of a hit than a lot of organizations. So I don't want to appear ungrateful or anything like that, because I know a lot of people have had very, very, very severe. It's just been a bit of a stall for us as a year, financially. I mean, I think the team has done unbelievably well. We were very lucky. First, we've always done flexible working. We've always done home working. We've only had core days of Tuesday and Thursday from 11 till 3. So our staff only had to come into the office for 2 4-day blocks a week. So we transitioned very naturally, and it's testament to the team how well that transition went and how well they have continued to perform. So from an operational perspective, almost zero impact. It was just the finances, and we'd forecast growing. We won't grow. We won't turn a profit, but we'll have achieved this year what we achieved last year, which, given the circumstances, we're really happy with. And a lot of it looks like it's pent up demand. So I don't know what other business leaders are seeing, but in our space in tech, budgets were frozen, spending was paused, but feels like it's coming back to us.
And we said that, before we came on air as such, we had a little chat, and obviously, does feel like the tides are turning slightly, and hopefully, you know, we can go into the new year and it can just kick on, and we can get back to where we were, and everyone can hopefully recover and start growing again.
Absolutely, and I really hope so. We're fortunate in our sector, technology, that it's one of the great winners of this, right? And we're even more fortunate that we have such a great team of staff who've weathered it really well, but also our clients. You know, we carried on working with all bar one of our clients over that period. Spend may have adjusted, but yeah, we're really grateful to them for their support and sticking with us, because it would have been easy to turn off a lot of what we do. But yeah, I guess it comes back to that relationship piece, doesn't it? And the benefit of having those ongoing engagements.
You should host a podcast. You've got to link it back to relationships again.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's so important, and the reason I keep doing it is because that is something here we believe in massively at Canada. You know, relationships are key to everything, with clients and within the team. And obviously, it's nice to hear a company out there, an agency, you know, and now obviously a technology company as well, which I'm sure have a very similar ethos to really cultivate that and create good relationships. But yeah, I mean, some good challenges, some obviously really difficult challenges you've had over the time, over the years. Come out of it, you're growing. You know, you've got this exciting project in Tybolt. I guess over the years, and I'm keen to hear this one. What's kind of the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And because I'm keen on this one, because you've obviously.
Oh, I wish you'd prep me for that one.
I like not telling people this one because it always gets the most honest and best response, I think. We can cut any pauses out as well.
Sorry?
We can cut any pauses out if you want to take a look.
No, two things jump to mind. I think the somewhat cliched one is the honesty and transparency bit. I genuinely think with clients, with staff, as long as you're honest and open about your intentions, then you can't get into too much trouble that you weren't expecting, right? If you're working with clients with whom you've got good relationships. I think the other more tactical bit was a piece of advice that I got from Paul, which is to involve your team as much as you can in decision making. And that's not about letting them determine what the output is in all circumstances, but by involving people, you get a greater sense of buy-in, ownership. And that's not a revolutionary piece of advice, I know, but it's one that when I look back, I think most of the changes we made, the team were bought into, and they weren't all successful. Some worked, some didn't. But I think we've got a great culture because we do try and involve people. So I think those two things really jumped out. It'd be interesting. I'll be asleep tonight and think of 8 more, far more profound inputs that I could have given. But
I think they're really important. I think they're great reasons, you know, to be honest. Well, if more people are honest in the world, I think we'd be a lot more successful, I think, as a community as well. You know, it's great to see that's a big part of your company. And I guess a reason why you're growing, you have grown, like you said, and you continue to grow, hopefully, as we move forward now past the pandemic. So yeah, no, listen, great piece of advice, Rob. Loved it. Thank you again so much for coming on the show and talking with me today. And I wish you all the best for the future. And I'd be interested to see as well. Let's maybe set up another call with yourself and discuss Tybolt in a year's time and see.
Yeah, let's do that. And we'll get Dan on board, and he'll defend himself.
Well, that's it. We can have. Yeah, that's it. I'll be a mediator in the middle, and we can see what's going on. But no, listen. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Amazing.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys out there watching. I've got some great content and insight and what it takes to create a company. And if anyone wants a mobile app creating, then obviously Rob's your man. Get in touch. Cheers, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you.